Hello, fellow sequestered fiber friends. Trying not to lose our minds. Here is a feather that I just made for you, but the videos are all screwed up, so don't take it too seriously. I've just put together a couple snaps of how to put these together. I've got materials gathered, and hopefully you'll figure it out. You're pretty clever. You'll be able to do it. These are all kind of towards a larger sculpture that I'm working on, and it's just been kind of fun to see where I can take it. So enough of you have shown that you're interested in making them, so good luck. I want to see what you end up with. Hope everybody's staying safe, and big hugs to everybody. Bye. All right, materials. Just use what you got, ladies and gentlemen. This is merino. I'm just gonna make a white feather with a little bit of this as an accent. I've got an alpaca silk blend here, and that's gonna be on the outside faces of my feather. The merino is gonna act as a little bit of, I'm calling it glue. I've got thread wrapped floral wire. It's pretty fine gauge. I'd say it's about a 26 or 28 even. And this is just a silk and Polworth, which is another type of wool blend that I'm going to use for shading. Okay, this is my setup. I've got a towel. I've got either bubble wrap or this rubberized shelf liner. One piece of mesh or nylon, whatever you're going to use for wet felting. And I've got another piece here that'll go on top. All right, so we're going to build this like a little sandwich. This is the merino, and no, I'm sorry, this is the alpaca silk mix. And the key here is to draft out as finely as you can. You want this to remain really wispy on the outside edges, so it's almost lace-like. I'm gonna hold my wire. You can cut this down if you want. I've been making 2 size feathers. I've been cutting my wire in half, thus making 2, or just making a really long one. This is all just personal preference. There's no right or wrong way to do this. Just keep this to the side, and that's gonna get sandwiched in the middle. So I'm gonna draft out. This is the outside edge of my feather, the tip. I'm using this alpaca silk mix up because I'm not finding any other projects that I like using it on. It's super wispy, anything that has silk in it, so it's gonna be wanting to move on you. Turn off your AC, your heater, your fans. And we're just gonna lay the fiber at an angle kind of like this, imagining the spine going down the center. Again, I'm keeping this really light. Always working towards that center spine. It's a little light at the top, so I'm gonna add a little bit more up there. But again, this is just the first layer, so know that you can fill in after you get your wire in there. Hold your breath. I hope it's you're able to see the white on white. You use any color you want. Do white with some silk over the top in a color. It's really beautiful. I've been doing that for the tail feathers on my project. Okay, so we're not ready for this wire yet. Now I'm picking up the merino, and I'm gonna go down the center because I want to be able to cover that wire. I don't want to be able to see it. And I want this merino to really hold all the other fibers, the silk and the things that are trickier to felt. So I'm going down there. It's a delicate balance. You don't want it to get too thick, but you want it to cover that wire. So I'm also, again, putting just a slight, really, really fine layer of this merino in the same direction as that alpaca silk mixture. And I'm hoping that that's dark enough, or that's thick enough to cover the wire once it gets wetted down. But if it isn't, then you can just add some more once you start wet felting. Okay, so I'm gonna lay this here. I'm gonna make a short feather just for demo purposes. And I didn't bother cutting my wire. I'm not gonna worry about it. Okay, so we've got alpaca silk, then we've got the merino down the middle, and then a little bit this way. So what I've done now is laid my wire down the center, and I'm going to take the merino, I still have that in my hands, and I'm gonna cover over that wire. Just down the spine. And sometimes I bring it down just to the wire a little bit, and it gets wrapped around there when it's wet felted. Okay, so we already have the merino going this way. I'm going to set this aside now and use the alpaca silk blend again. And this time I'm not gonna bother going down the center spine. I'm just gonna bring these kind of alternate sides, keeping it wispy. Don't breathe. Well, keep yourself as alive, but don't breathe on your work. Okay, you can always kind of feather this out if it gets too thick. And if you're just working with merino and you don't have a blend, just do all of this layout in merino, and then start with silk, and then the merino, and then more silk if you want some shine to it. Okay, so I think that's looking pretty good. Might come down the center just a little bit, again, to cover that wire so it's not seen. Okay, so I'm setting the alpaca silk aside now. So here is that Polworth silk mix. And for my project, I've been making white feathers, and you can shade with anything you want. You can, this is a silk Polworth again, and you can just lay it kind of in line with the, you'll pick it up. Silk is sticky. Honestly, I think I prefer these, if I'm making them white, to just not even bother with the shading. I just wanted to show you kind of what I've done in my experiments. My friend Dee Dee made a beautiful feather with, I think she used white, and then she did this gorgeous teal and terracotta throughout. It was really beautiful. Okay, that is it. So now we're going to cover this up with our second piece of mesh. Okay, I am just wetting out. I've got olive oil soap and some room temp water. And I'm just soaking the fiber. No friction at this point, no rubbing. Just pressing all of the fiber to moisten it. All right, and now I'm already going to peel this off. I just want to make sure nothing's sticking. I want to keep all of these little wispy edges where I laid them. So you're going to peel off almost immediately after wetting. I just want to check that, and remember you've got mesh on both sides, so you need to do both sides. So I'll recover, flip, and I can see the wire a little bit more on this side, but I'm not going to worry about it. I'm not going to fuss with putting more fiber on. My hands are already wet. You can totally do that though. Oh, I lied. Look at, see, I don't like that at all, so I am going to put a little bit more fiber in there. Just a little. I mean, we have a top and a bottom anyway, so Okay, that'll do. Get my soap. All right, so now I'm just gonna lightly rub. I wanna take care not to move the wire too much, because these are thread wrapped. They'll tend to move and pull out sometimes. Sometimes I do pull them out on purpose, depending on the end use of the feather, but they're great to have in there initially, whether you plan on taking it out or not, because then you can, it will help you with forming it when you're cutting into the feather, and we will be burning the edges too, so it's helpful in that. All right, let's check our edges. Keep peeling back. Remember, we've got net on both sides. So see how it's sticking in here? That's okay. This is gonna look a little jankety at first. So sometimes I take that fiber and I kind of wrap it around the wire at the bottom of the feather, or I guess the insertion point where the quill is. These aren't going to get rolled because the wire, so they'll look a little bit fluffy, but the starching will take care of that. All right, I'm already going to peel this off, just physically take it up, because I want to see where we're at. This all just takes, you know, a delicate touch. Don't get frustrated, put on some good music. Just kind of lose yourself in this with all the craziness in the world. I'm sorry, you don't want to be listening to me. I don't know how else to do this though, so this is just as we go. All right. So because I have that alpaca, it's just a little bit trickier to felt. So I am applying pressure at this point, rubbing, but trying to keep those edges lacy still. It's not going to look much like a feather once it comes out. That's finessing it once we get it dry and starched. Okay, you're getting the idea of what's going on here. I'll probably just flip this another time and then cut to something else. But you see, I'm actually physically picking this up because I want it to hold together. And you really don't know that until you pick it up. But just keep pulling these little edges out, keep it lacy. And I'm gonna give this one more rub on this side and we'll be done. I am applying quite a bit of pressure at this point, but not for too long, because it will stick. All right, next step. Okay, I'm picking up our feather at this point, such as it is. I'm taking it over to a pot of boiling water. It's big enough, and I've got this wire, so don't burn yourselves. And we're just gonna shock it and get that soap out. I haven't been tending to soak these in vinegar at the end. You can definitely do that, but I'm not bothering. Okay, now I'm gonna walk this over to the sink. And actually, I could just put it right in my cold water. So you're going to shock it in the cold, and that's it. Okay, so here's our feather that just soaked in cold, and I am going to press the water out as best I can, just to give it a head start, because we're going to starch it next. So we're going to take this over to the ironing board. Get your parchment out. We're just gonna open this, get the little fluffies. You see what I mean? It looks a little rough, but this will change. Okay, off we go. Okay, so I've got a piece of parchment that I've used any number of times. One sheet will do, and you just fold it in half over your feather. So I've got my iron heating up. I've got some starch. Here is our feather. And I'm gonna spray it. Make sure you're still keeping that wispy nature of it. And I'm gonna flip it over in the overspray. I don't know if you can see me doing that. I'm doing it one-handed. Okay, maybe a little bit more in the center. And close her up. And my iron is set at the wool silk setting. And you're just gonna work this until it's fairly dry, both sides. Okay, so I take it out of the parchment at a certain point of dryness. I just get the rest of the moisture out directly on the fabric of my craft ironing board. Hopefully I don't have too much other crap on it that's gonna deposit on the feather. Flip that over, and you can see it's getting some body to it. Now my wire did turn. See, it's kind of curving this way, but it'll be all right. Okay. Next step. Okay, so now we've got our starched feather. I don't know if you can see the wire through there, but it's kind of curving this way. I like to look for natural places where it might make sense to cut. The edge is really fuzzy still, but it's nice and lacy. And so now we've got scissors. I'm using this wood because I just want you to be able to see the contrast. And I just cut no particular way. I just kind of feel my way through this. Come on, be an artist. Both sides. And if you want to narrow your feather, if you don't want it quite as wide as this, you can trim down. But know that we're going to burn some of this off, and so it's going to kind of happen on its own. So when I'm using a lighter, which is the next step, I like these fireplace lighters. I don't love the plastic element of it, but they are refillable. I don't know what else to do, honestly, other than maybe like a long fireplace match. Maybe that would make sense. But this is easy to control. You don't have to worry, like, if your feather does catch on fire, which it may. We're living on the edge here, folks. You want to be able to put it out without like having to worry about your lit match. Please don't burn down your houses, y'all. This would be really, 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 really bad given that we're all stuck in them. Okay, so you can see, and sometimes I go back in and cut more later, but just for now, I like the way this is looking. And these are just, gosh, these are applique scissors. They just happen to be some of the sharper ones that I have that I inherited from my grandma. I'm just gonna cut this guy off altogether. All right. So this is the fun part. Actually, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna stop the camera. I want you to go to your ironing board. I think I have a little clip of this happening. And I want you to iron your feather folded in half like this before we begin this step, and I'll be right back. Okay, so I just ironed my feather in half along that wire, because I think that kind of gives me more of a sense of it, its shape and what needs to happen next. Okay, here's the sketch part. So we're gonna take this lighter. Hopefully it will light on me. Okay. And these lacy bits do catch fire really quickly. So just know that you can just put it out. It's no big deal. I like to burn a lot of this away sometimes. If you hold the fire underneath, the wool is going to curve towards that flame. So if you want it to curve up, hold it under this way, so that when you turn it this way, it's curling up. It's like magic. And I take these just along the edges to create some movement and interest in my project. I mean, maybe this doesn't work for you, but in my project, I wanted it to look a little kind of battle worn and, you know, just a little rough. So this is just, like I said, my experimentation. This is not a professional anything or other. It's just where I've come to, and enough of you have seemed like you wanted to learn how to do it. So here we are, bumbling through together. Hopefully this is coming across. Sometimes I kind of open that up and we'll actually take the flame to that edge. See how pretty that is? That just drew that tip right into a little corner, or into a curve up this way. I think I left my shading on the other side. Yeah, I did. And this is just, you know, just play with it until you're happy with it. If you want to cut more breaks in the feather, do so. But that's pretty much it. Let's see, maybe we'll get rid of this bit. Ta-da! All right, now I have been concerned about humidity in Texas and whether or not these would flop over time. And so what I have been playing with, and I think is a happy thing, is using spray shellac. So I get a cardboard box and I poke a bunch of holes in it, you know, so that I can stand these upright, so that once I've sprayed them lightly on both sides, I can stand them up and let them dry. And I'll attach a picture of the shellac that I've been using. I just get it at a big you know, home improvement store. And I bought it initially because it says that it's food safe. So I was sealing some gold-leafed shells to use as salt cellars. But there we go. I think that's good. Add it to the pile. Thanks for playing, guys.